too.
All right. Welcome to welcome to our monthly workshop series. Tonight we're joined by Alex Halroyd, and we're going to be looking at some mutes, a whole range of different ones, the sounds they make, why you might use one over another, and why there are like 13 billion different types of straight mute rather than just one that does the job. So I'm going to hand straight across to Alex, trumpet extraordinaire and woodwind extraordinaire.
Yeah. And, you know, the sort of person you like to have around when you've run out of other people to hire. So, just joking.
So Alex, take it away. And,
cool.
If you've got questions, pop them up as we go, and we'll try and get to them too. I'll keep an eye out for those. But otherwise, we'll take it away.
Not a problem, Cal. Mutes. They're really, really cool. Obviously, I love mutes. I play the trumpet, and I think mutes are fantastic for changing the sound on an instrument. Years and years ago, I lived in a musician share house with a trumpet player called Josh Rogan, who now plays, I think it's associate principal in Auckland Phil. So wonderful classical trumpet player. And one day we were talking about mutes and bits and pieces, and he had this enormous bag of mutes. I was like, hang on. I've got a cup, a straight, and a Harmon, and a plunger that I bought from Bunnings for about $3.50. I was asking, what on earth do you need all these mutes for? And he was like, well, you know, like, I mean, each one has got their own kind of sound and character. And, you know, like if I'm doing more modern orchestral stuff, I want something a bit brighter. If I'm doing older music, you know, I want a different sound again. You know, you might want a warmer mute. If he's playing Gershwin, he might want a different sort of cut mute than if he was playing in a big band. So hence why there are so many choices, and you probably can't see them on the video right now, but I'm looking at a table with quite a lot of mutes here. So what we'll do, I want to talk about some practice mutes first, because these are probably especially for students living in apartments or people living in apartments, these are probably like some of the most important mutes that you'll probably get, and probably the first one you're going to buy as well. So we'll start with this one. So obviously lots and lots of different options with practice mutes. Got a couple of other bits and pieces here. There's the famous shush mute as well, which everyone has probably seen before, the one with the yellow end, and I'm pretty sure I've got one of them here too. Practice mutes, basically, fundamentally, they just kind of do like a sound reduction, okay? So is there a compressor on the on the microphone?
We'll find out.
We'll find out.
Just slightly away from the computer.
So, like, I'm playing at a pretty solid forte there, yeah? I'm going to try this one out. Obviously, each one's got its own kind of little purpose as well, but this is going to fit really snugly inside the bell of this particular mute. So, straight away, it's reducing the amount of volume by probably a good 95%. This is one I haven't actually tried before. ProTech library mutes. Fantastic. It's a ProTech practice mute. Fantastic. There you go. Whether you can see that or not. So, again, there are options for these depending on what you like the feeling of when you're playing. Yeah, personally, I kind of really, really like that one. Some people want ones that will fit snugly in a case. This is probably going to get pretty close because, as you can see, you put it in the bell of the trumpet, it's almost sitting flush. Yeah. So that may or may not go in a trumpet case with the trumpet in the bell, depending on what kind of trumpet case you've got. And yes, they do feel different. They can play around with the intonation. Some of them feel like more like you're playing a trumpet without a mute, and some of them feel less like that. So this particular one, it's quite small. I like the feel of it. It's probably not the best or not my favorite practice mute that I've ever played on for the short amount of time that I've had to go on it for. Personally, I prefer the shush mute, which is this one. And if you play the trumpet, you've probably seen one of these, or If you have a teacher, they would have recommended one of these to you in the past, if you live in an apartment or something like that. Practice mutes are fantastic. Like, I'm a really, really big fan. One of my favorite ways to go and do some work or do some rudimentary practice routines is to sit in front of the television. Bear with me here. Sit in front of the TV, stick a practice mute in, and just go through a routine. I'll put a set of subtitles on a Netflix show, and I'll just not focus overly too much on it. I'll just be thinking about my breathing and just going through my routine. So the shush mute, this is my personal favorite, and they've changed the design a bit over the years. This is what it looks like now. It's a bit more bulbous than the old one. This is what it sounds like, so to speak. So I'm not overly playing it really hard there, but even if you live in a house with other people, they're not going to hear that. They're probably not going to hear that either. Personally, I like the resistance of the shush mute just a bit better. We've got a couple of other ones here, and these can kind of do a bit of crossover work. So these are some trump call mutes, and they're both servicing a similar purpose, but there is a slightly different sound, and one is a bit louder than the other. So the cone-shaped one is the Trump Core Super Stealth. It's a very, very good name. It's even got its own stealth black coating on it, so the radar won't see it. The end's basically just got a bunch of little holes in it, yeah. But apart from that, it basically seals through the bell of the instrument. Again, different sound. It's obviously muffling it in a different way, because there's, instead of being one single hole in the front of the mute, like the shush mute, there's multiple really small ones, which you probably won't be able to see through the camera, but I think I've got an angle there, you might be able to see it. Again, the resistance is different, the sound is different. It's all personal choice, yeah? The other trump call we have is the Lyric Stealth. These are great names. How do they come up with these names? Fantastic. It's obviously a different shape. Again, it's got the holes in the end of it. I think we can see there. Fantastic. So I'm going to get a different sound again. So for me, that's actually quite a bit louder than the other two. I'm not sure the compressor's actually bringing that in. I have a couple of friends who work in the theatre world who actually have used these in the pit for a purpose. I might have to go and discuss that with them further. So that's we've kind of looked at 4 practice mutes and semi-practice mutes there. We've got another one last semi-practice mute, and this is the shush whisper mute. So unlike the shush mute, the hole at the end is a bit bigger. It's going to let a bit more sound through, yeah? So again, a different sound altogether. Another product that you might want to try out at some point. All these are, you can come and try all these things. They're fantastic. That one is substantially louder than the other mutes, with the exception of the Trump Core Lyric Stealth. Lyric Stealth, whisper mute, a bit more audible in a room. Probably wouldn't want to play it myself at 2 o'clock, 2:30 in the morning in a house with my family. But they're options. So yeah, I would definitely, if you're looking for a practice mute, I'd definitely encourage everyone to sort of like come and have a play on them, see which one fits you the best. Just because I like the shush mute the most doesn't mean that you will, yeah? So cool. I might just move on, and this is an interesting one because a lot of music shops won't sell these, and they will sell other types of these. So basically here we've got a couple of plungers, okay? This is one that the music place stocks in store. It's called a fax plunger mute, basically designed to create that wah-wah effect. So this particular one is vented. I'm not sure if you can see that. Yeah, there is a hole in it. Basically, that helps assist with the intonation of the mute, because whenever you cover up the bell of a trumpet or a brass instrument, it will send the pitch out. This one's designed to sort of make it a bit more comfortable to hold than your standard rudimentary plunger that you get from Bunnings. Yeah, so plungers are really, really fun. The diameter of this one's a bit bigger than your standard plunger as well. So I'm going to do a back-to-back comparison of what the two sounds like. Whether you want to go and, get a Bunnings one or, a nicer one, totally up to you. Worth a try though, yeah? Cool. For me, that's kind of feels a bit darker than your standard plunger mute. Again, the diameter is wider. It's going to change the sound. All these things will change the sound of what an actual mute will sound like inside or outside a trumpet. Yeah. Of course, this is basically just a sync plunger. You can get them from a hardware store. A lot of people will pierce the inside of them to vent them. I haven't done that with mine because I'm lazy. But they do produce a different sound. Yeah. Cool. Personally, for me, I'm just a bit more comfortable with this. I've been using one of these for, a good 12, 13 years or so. I would be personally more than open to trying the larger one, just because the color and the timbre is different. It might suit an earlier style of music. Yeah. Cool. So that's kind of the plungers done. I know there are other options out there. Berg makes one. They're a bit more expensive again. Again, the diameter's wider. Everything's loud if you play the trumpet. Next, I'm going to move on to some straight mutes. So straight mutes, they're kind of like your more sort of classical brass bandy kind of sounding mute. And I've got 3 different types here. There are other types as well. They use different materials. All of these things will change and affect the way these things project. Now, straight mutes have a much, much wider palette of sounds than the other mutes that we've already looked at. And there is a definite purpose for each one. For me, and this is probably something you might want to go and check out if you're close to a YouTube after the session, but look up Pines of Rome by Respighi. The opening of that piece of music is played on, like a bright metal mute. And the whole idea is that they can cut over the top of the orchestra, and usually a copper-based mute that's bright will achieve that much better than something made out of a fiberglass or a wood. The other one I'd like to liken to is the Buena Vista Social Club album. There's a trumpet player on that, beautiful, beautiful trumpet player, and he's playing through, probably a wooden or a like a fiber kind of mute. It's a much more mellow sound. It still sounds like a straight mute, but it's a different kind of sounding straight mute. Much like like a Bach 37 is going to sound different to a, like a lightweight horn, like a Benj. Yeah, cool. So the first one I'll look at is basically, this is my favorite, and I know a lot of people don't agree with me. This is actually my personal one. This is a Dennis Wick straight mute, and it's pretty simple. It's aluminium. Mine's beaten up. If you come and buy one from this shop, it will be nice and new. Okay. The other thing that's worth mentioning is the bell on each trumpet's quite different. So I've got a couple of trumpets here. I've got a lightweight Yamaha thing, which is falling to pieces, which I really like, and I've got a nice more modern, Shires, which is like a Bach copy, Bach 37 bell equivalent. The bells on them are different. The corks will behave differently in the bells. This one sits quite a way in. So personally, if I was to keep using this mute and this trumpet, I'm probably going to have a slightly thicker cork in it. But cool. A very metallic sound, even with this one sitting way too far on the bell with the instrument. Just to give a demonstration, I'm going to play a different trumpet with the same mute, just so that you can hear that they do sound a bit different, and it will probably be identifiable even over a computer microphone. So. So for me, it feels a bit more lively in the other trumpet than this one, this particular mute anyway. So they do behave a bit differently. The next one I'd like to talk about is the Joe Rale Straight, which is this one. Cool, excellent. I've also got one of these and I've mistreated it and the corks have fallen off. So probably going to come in and have that recorked really, really soon. The Joe Rale is a bit of a different kettle of fish, yeah? This is a nice shiny new one. This is what yours will look like, not like my beaten up old nasty one. There you go. This is literally out of the packet too. It's very special. Materials. First things first. Copper. Aluminium. Copper is denser and heavier. The design is slightly different as well, so it will change the sound as well. But predominantly, this is going to make a really, really big difference to the way that sounds. Personally, I find these a bit dark for my personal tastes. Other people really, really like that. In fact, a lot of my colleagues like playing on this mute especially. I'll give a demonstration now. Again, it's going to sound like a straight mute, okay? Just a different type of straight mute. More compact sound, a bit more warmth, in my opinion. Still got a lot of that sort of straight, sizzly kind of sound to it. I'm just going to quickly A-B it with the Dennis Wick, and I'm going to play the exact same excerpt. So straight away you can tell this one's a bit brighter. It doesn't have as much body to the sound. In the context of an orchestra, that might be a bit rash, whereas in the context of a big band, which is probably louder until the orchestra's really loud, and that's probably louder, but that's going to be, for me, a bit more suitable. Cool. More straight mutes. This is one I haven't seen before. This is a straight mute made by the Shush company, and it is made out of plastic. Straight mutes are fantastic. You can make them out of just about anything, and they will sound good. Yeah. In general, the pitching's not too bad either, depending on the material or the design either. The pitching doesn't get affected quite as much as something like a Harmon mute. So this is the first time I've played one of these. I'm really excited. Cool. I'm not even sure how to describe that. That sounds really good. It's quite bright. It doesn't have as much liveliness to it as the metal ones, but it definitely, again, sounds like a straight mute. It's definitely bright. It's a bright sounding mute. Different trumpet, again, different kind of sound, different resistance as well. I'm just going to quickly definitely A/B it with the other two as well, because this is definitely something worth considering. Dennis Wick, aluminium mute. Cool. For me, straight away, this one's just more lively and brighter. Yeah, but the other one is still cool. I do like the sound of that one. Copper, Joe Rowell mute. Darker, still has a more lively sound than the plastic mute, in my personal opinion. You might feel totally differently about it. Ultimately, we all play the trumpet, or we should play the same, but we're all different anatomically, so you will get a different sensation from each of those mutes. I think that was it for straight mutes. Was there another straight?
I think that's most of them.
There's another one that is stocked here that I'm familiar with, the Tom Crown mutes. Now, they come in two different styles. One's brighter than the other. They do a copper base one. They do a fully copper one. The fully copper one is extremely loud. Like, that is a loud mute. The resistance on all of these will feel different. Personally, I really, really like the Tom Crown mutes. They sound fantastic. The other one that's worth mentioning, which is kind of like the industry standard mute, is the Humes and Berg straight mute. They're just made out of a fibrous material, and like this cup mute, they're white with a red tip. And they're a fantastic mute as well. I'm a really, really big fan of them. Some people kind of rubbish them, but yeah, I like the sound they produce. I do find them a bit more pitchy than some of the more modern ones, but you know, if you've got the chops to be able to negotiate that, then it can still be something that's really, really useful. Cool. Next thing I'm going to move on to is probably going to be some cup mutes, I reckon. Now that we've brought the topic up, cup mutes. They're very, very, very typical big band mute. They have been used in orchestral music a bit, not very much though. You don't see them in orchestras very often, unless they're playing pops music. They're very, very common in big band music. Less common in Latin music, but it does happen from time to time. I know that Machito used cup mutes and various bits and pieces that he was doing. But yeah, if you put on a bassy record, you're going to hear cup mutes. You're going to hear cup mutes all the time because they have a really, really lovely timbre and flavour. Again, I've got this is my personal one, Humes and Berg. This is the industry standard, and this is still my favourite cup mute out of all the cup mutes that are on sale. Again, some people can't stand them. There's some really, really, really flashy, expensive ones out there, which I have played that are awesome. Personally, I can't justify the cash on them. We're talking like big money for these things. So here we go. This is what the Humes and Berg stone-lined cup mute sounds like. Really, really common sound. Everyone has heard the sound before. Everyone who has done big band music would have heard the sound before. Great sounding mute. So that's kind of like, again, your industry standard cup mute. We've got a couple of other ones here, which are not in front of me. They're behind me. This one really picks my fancy straight away. It's a trump core cup mute. Classical cup. And it's massive. Like, that is, I don't know, I mean, it's probably because of the color. Obviously, white colors will stand out a bit more than darker colors, but like, I can definitely tell that's actually a substantially larger mute than the Humes and Berg cup. It's also lighter than the Humes and Berg cup, which is interesting as well. So it's obviously a much lighter material. The inside has got like a, and you probably won't be able to see that, it's got like a pool table kind of fabric or felt on it. Seems like a good quality product. I'm going to play the exact same thing on that again. And it's adjustable. Excellent. this is definitely worth having some discussions about as well. So yeah, obviously this is quite a big mute. It's not very heavy, so don't be fazed by that. Adjusting the cup itself will change the timbre. I'm going to demonstrate a couple of times, yeah? So this is quite a way out for a cup mute, but it's actually making something in the room ring. That's a very, very lively sounding mute. I really, really like that. So I'm going to adjust the cup. That's going to change the timbre again. Yeah, so it's a bit closer. It won't be quite as loud, but it will be a warmer sound. Yeah. Surprisingly, that's not that much softer, is it?
It was noticeable from here.
It was noticeable from I couldn't tell the difference. So Cal's on the other side of the camera. That's really interesting. If you're in a live situation, you want a loud cup mute, but isn't loud out the front, but could be, then this is looking like a really great option. That's fantastic. I'm going to close them.
You're talking about the corks and fitting them to your different trumpet bells.
Yeah.
Potentially you'd want to shave that down a bit to fit in there a bit further.
Yeah, maybe. I would like it is quite wide, like it's got a bit of thickness to it, but that'll change it as well. I'm just going to put it all the way in just so you can hear that. So this is completely blocked off. A bit of air will escape and the tuning is probably going to be awful, but there you go. Again, totally different sound again. That almost sounds a bit like a bucket mute, that thing. But so there you go. Trump cork, classical jazz or classical cup. It's not going to be used for classical music much. Just putting it out there. That is very much a jazzy sounding mute. Cool. That's awesome. Wow. I'm really impressed with that. I'm going to talk about Joe Rail cup mutes. Cool. So this is another one this has been around for a few years. It's a Joe Rail cup mute. This one has actually got some felt adjustments in it, which we're going to talk about. Joe Rail products, just like the straight. These are really, really well made and really well considered mutes. I'm a particularly big fan of the Harmon, which we'll get to in a second. But yeah, this is the cup. There's three different sorts of settings settings we can use on this. You can either have lots of felt in the crown, a bit of felt in the crown, or no felt. And again, it's going to dramatically change the timbre of the instrument. Yeah. Speaking of wanting different corks, this one goes pretty much all the way in. I'm finding that really hard work personally, just because it needs a bit more gap on the actual mute itself, for me anyway. And I'm using a big mouthpiece. That's quite a dark, muffled sound for me. I'm going to remove this. So this basically comes out of that. There's still a piece of felt left in there. So this is going to change the sound of the instrument quite a bit. Personally, the distance is messing with my intonation on the high notes. There's a bit of resistance in it as well. It's a good sounding mute. I would personally think that this would take a bit more work than the others, but it's a good sounding mute. Take the other bit of felt out. That's the same shape as the cone. Cool. Again, totally different sound. Cool. Again, totally different sound. Personally, if I was to purchase this mute, I'd want a thicker cork on it. That's actually quite a thin cork. So if you purchase it from this shop, the music place, the workshop is going to help you out with that. They can refit the cork to your particular trumpet. Cool. Does that cover cup mutes? There are a couple of others that are available here that I don't think might be in stock at the moment. There's the Dennis Wick Cup Straight. That is basically the same as the trump core mute, but a more traditional material. So you'll probably notice this. Actually, you can take it off. It's basically a straight mute, but it's not really a straight mute, but it can be an option. So the Dennis Wick pretty much does the same thing as one of them. My suspicion is this would be a far superior mute for me. I'd prefer that over the Dennis Wick, but they're good to a price. Yeah. So there's the cup mute situation.
So with those, Alex,
yeah,
is there different gigs that you do where you might choose, say, the Humes&Berg versus like the drum corps, depending on what repertoire you're doing? Or?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I think if I was booked to do your bassy kind of stuff, count bassy, old school swing and stuff, I'd be really hard pressed to go past one of them. They just work, you know. I was playing that excerpt. So I was playing a Gershwin excerpt from the piano concerto on the Joe Rail cup mute, and I think that particular one, because the score specifically asks for a felt crown mute or crown felt mute. This is basically what that would be for. I might just quickly play some bassy kind of stuff on it again, just so you can hear the difference. For me personally, that's not particularly the sound that I want if I was playing early, 40s, 50s, 30s big band music. It's a bit dark for me. Sitting in an orchestra doing Gershwin, that's actually probably going to be a really fantastic mute for that kind of sound. The trump corps, you know what? I reckon it's probably pretty flexible, this thing. I'd probably take that onto a big band gig anywhere as my only mute. It's really good. If you're doing modern jazz big band stuff, this would be better than a Humes&Berg. It's got more projection. It's a bit of a cleaner sound. You get a lot more feedback sound-wise as well, which you may or may not want. But yeah, I would definitely have a different use for each and every single one of them, for sure. Cool. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Great. Awesome. Yeah. This is my favorite one. Thank you. But let's talk about the traditional one first. So I want to talk about some Harmon mutes now. There are many, many options for these. Many people have made the right one. This is like, yeah, I just really like the sound of these mutes, and a lot of people do. And they get used in lots of scoring. With the stem out, Miles Davis made that a famous jazz sound, and a really, really fantastic sound it is. So I'm going to play a couple of these different materials and different designs. I'm going to demonstrate what the sounds with the stem in and out of them as well. I'm going to start off with the traditional Harmon mute. So these were basically, these have been around for years and years and years. This is pretty similar to the one that Miles Davis would have used, but not the same. The design of the standard Harmon mute has changed ever so slightly over the years. The new ones are a bit brighter, but yeah, really, really fantastic mute. If you just want to run the mill Harmon mute, these are a pretty good way to go.
They got a couple of different names too, like is it Wawa and
yeah, they do have different names. I remember looking at a Humenberg brochure years ago, and I had a Humenberg Harmon as well. In fact, I might still have it. It was awesome. Like, it wasn't loud, but the sound was fantastic. It was really, really even playing mute. But they had like a schwishwa and a wow wow and a do-wah mute. They're all essentially based on this traditional design, but people call them different things. For the sake of this, I'm probably going to call it a Harmon mute because it does get a bit confusing. So yeah, traditional Harmon mute, there's two uses we can use for it, okay? All Harmon mutes have a stem. Some very specialist ones are made to keep the stem in or not have the stem at all. But for the vast majority of them, they all have a stem, yeah? Cool. That's what a Harmon mute sounds like with a stem in it. Of course, you can cover that up and it will dramatically change the sound again. It's like a cartoon mute sound, yeah? You can call it the cartoon mute. We could call it the cartoon mute, couldn't we? A lot of purpose for that. I've haven't done much theatre stuff over the years myself, but whenever I have, these have been just all over, like everywhere in theatre scores. Taking the stem out, it's going to sound dramatically different. Cool. I can do something in time that'd be really, really great. That's basically your traditional Harmon stem out sound. You would have heard it before. Everyone has heard it before. I really like that. That sounds awesome. It's not quite as warm as the Joe Rail, but you can definitely get that real lovely harmony sound out of it. Harmon mutes are one of those mutes that sound really, really good, really close to the diaphragm of a microphone on a live gig. It will, just something about the signal they produce really, really gets, you get a lot of signal through a PA system. So yeah, they sound fantastic. That's awesome. I forgot how good they are, actually. I thought it'd be a lot brighter and thinner than that, but that's really stunning. Are these the cheapest ones you can get? Probably.
About $80.
About $80 now. What's a Joe Rail worth? 120 or something?
A bit more than that. Maybe 160.
Yeah, $160. So yeah, they're pretty good. If you want a good Harmon, I might walk out with that tonight. Actually, it's a really, really nice playing mute. Cool. This particular one here, this is based on the original Harmon design. This is made out of a different material, okay? But being a different brand, this is a Tom Crown copper Harmon or Wow Wow, Schwishwa, Sichuan mute. It will have a different sound. Even an alloy one of these will sound different to the Harmon. just as a demonstration, I'm going to have a bit of a play on this now. Yeah. Brighter for me, bit more body to the sound as well. For me, the wah on this isn't quite as pronounced as the other one. Yeah, it's just a bit less pronounced. I should mention as well, because the stem is obviously long, if you have it halfway in, it's going to sound different again, yeah? So different timbres again. I have seen music written where it says stem halfway. Let's try it without it, shall we? That's a nice sounding mute too. That's great.
Lots of nice toys.
It's not as loud as the other one. What do you reckon? This one doesn't feel as loud as the other one. I'm not sure if it's because copper's a denser material or not. I would have thought that the copper would have made it project a bit more, but the design aspect can come into it as well. It's a different sound. Again, personal taste. You might prefer this over the Harmon. Personally, I prefer the Harmon brand Harmon over the Tom Crown, but that's just me. If you're doing lots of different kinds of work, you might want both as an option. Yeah.
Not much of a difference with the resistance between them.
Actually, this is a really good point too, because this felt like it had a lot of resistance in it.
It sounded like that too.
It does have more resistance. I'm just going to quickly have a tootle on the other one. This is much easier to play for me. Much easier. Yeah. The lighter aluminium mutes do tend to be a bit more responsive. In my experience, I've got a Joe Rail copper and an aluminium Harmon mute. For me, the copper one projects like there's nobody's business. They are quite loud, those things. The alloy one's just easier to play, and that's the one that I've ended up using as my preference over the last sort of few years. Cool. So they're sort of two examples of the more traditional ones. I'll just put them back together. So I'm starting to get a lot of mutes here. Cheers. I might end up A-Bing them again in a second. Lastly, this is my personal one. It's got a bunch of dents in it. It's not really straight anymore. It's copped a couple of hits. So this is the Joe Rail bubble mute, or bubble Harmon, or Sichuan, Shwishwa, Wow Wow. This is probably my favorite. How long have these been around for? Maybe 20 years? Like, I remember they came out and they took the world by storm because they sound like a mute going through a microphone without the microphone. They've got a really sort of dark warmth to them. But I'll use the stem in first. I find the stem in on these, the wahs, quite pronounced. It'd be good if I learned how to play that excerpt properly. So that's kind of what that sounds like. This is a bit loose too. Must have had a really rough time. That stem, a lot of gigs probably being tripped on. With the stem out. Probably not quite as bright as the other ones for me. Like the other ones felt a bit brighter. It does have a very colourful overtone. Like for me, there's a very distinctive overtone in it. So yeah, really, really great sound. Very, very, very usable and easy to play too. With the stem out, again, different story with the other ones. It's probably going to be a bit warmer than the other ones just because of the design. Yeah, a bit warmer, a bit easier to play. I found the intonation on these pretty much spot on. For a mute, there is some adjusting that you will need to do. Some people actually adjust their tuning slides when they're playing on Harmons. Personally, I don't feel like I need to, but it is a thing. Yeah, I really like there's less resistance in this one than there is the other two. I'm just going to quickly A/B it with the regular Harmon. Oh, thank you. I feel like the Joe Rail's got a bit more sound than these ones, but it's still good. Yeah. So yeah, Harmon mutes, again, there's lots and lots of different options. I don't think we don't have a copper bubble here, do we? The copper bubbles are heavy. I stopped using them because I became old and lazy. But yeah, they will make your trumpet feel like they're tipping. The Joe Rail copper is kind of brighter and darker than the alloy one at the same time. It will really get a ring to it when you push it. At a lower volume, it's probably a bit brighter. But yeah, when you push it, like it has more overtones just because the material's more dense. For me, it's probably a bit harder to play. If I was playing in a big band, I was playing lead trumpet, I would probably want to use the copper one just because you're going to get more projection out of it and for no other reason. The more regular alloy Joe Rail mute I'd use for everything else. I feel like that Harmon, that aluminium Harmon brand Harmon, I'd probably be really keen to see what that one sounds like through a microphone, because that's kind of Miles Davis's mute. And mic proximity with Harmons makes a massive difference because all the air is passing through that tiny hole. It moves the diaphragm of a microphone in a certain way. So when you hear Miles playing on a lot of those recordings, he's probably got the diaphragm of that microphone quite close to the mute. If you see live performances, a lot of people will like get the mute right on the microphone, especially if it's a 57 or a 58 SM Shure microphone, and it does sound great. That alloy one, I feel like that'd sound awesome through a microphone. That thing probably be really good in a studio situation if you're overdone in solos, if that's what you do. Yeah, so that's the Harmons kind of done. I've got a couple more I want to talk about. Bucket mutes are next. Now, there's a few different things you can use for buckets. I've seen some people use a pillowcase. Pillowcases don't sound very good, but it will kind of bring a similar effect. Which one I want to start off with? I'm going to start off. The most traditional one we've got here is actually the Trum Call one, this is an improvement on a very, very old design. It's similar to the Humes and Berg mute. My suspicion is just a bit more refined in the way that it plays. Yeah. I'm going to stick this on this trumpet because my other trumpet has a crack in the bell, and I don't want to go and encourage that any further. Cool. This one kind of clips on. Yeah, so you can see there's a bit of distance. If there's any resistance in this at all, I would be very, very surprised. I must be too tired to play that mouthpiece. There we go. Basically, the bucket itself is full of felt or foam or, some sort of deadening material. It's got a layer over the top of it to keep it all in there. I'm sure you guys can see that. This one's got the logo on it. It's pretty cool. Bucket. Trump call bucket. Bucket mutes are found in big band music very frequently, and often in pit theatre world as well. Trying to think of other circumstances I've seen these. Probably not all that often, to be honest. We're kind of getting a bit more typecast here. The bucket mute is definitely a jazz mute. It's kind of similar to like putting the bell of your trumpet into the stand effect-wise when you're standing out the front, but this obviously is going to make life a lot easier because you're going to actually have the sound, and it does sound different as well. What are these worth? Have to check. While Cal's checking that, I'm going to have a look at the other one, which kind of piqued my curiosity here. So this is a Joe Rowell bucket mute, and it does not look like a bucket mute at all. It looks like a combination of a few things. The top looks like a straight mute. The bottom looks like a bucket mute crossed with a straight mute, and then it's filled with felt. But it's got corks like a straight mute as well. It's a very, very different sounding. For me, that's a dramatically different sound. I cannot stress how different that is to the other one. I can't even really describe it. It's got a very colourful overtone to it. It's cool. I haven't played one of these for years. It's got a very, very kind of like pretty sound to it. It's a very overtony kind of sound, much more so than the other one. That's just going to sit there for a bit. So just A-B them. Totally different. I cannot think of two mutes in this room that are the same type of mute that are more different than these two. That's actually quite astounding, isn't it? Wow. So there's a traditional bucket made by a modern company and a Joe Rowell bucket, which is not traditional at all. But they're both cool. I don't know what I'd use or something. Maybe that'd definitely be in a big band. I'd probably play that in a jazz combo just because I'm not sure if it'd blend with the other trumpets all that well, but it sounds great. There's another kind as well. Did we end up getting that one out as well, Cal? Yes, we did. Oh,
that's a trombone one.
This is a trombone one, but I'm going to use it anyway because it's hilarious. So, soft brass trombone mute large. Yeah, this is going to work. This is basically another type of bucket mute. As you can see, it's made out of a wetsuit material, and it will go over the bell, in this case of a trombone, but we're going to stick it on over the top of my trumpet as well today because it is going to make a difference. The trumpet ones obviously fit tighter than that, FYI. straight away for me, that's louder because I think all the sound is reflecting off the inside and coming back at me. Was it like, is that louder out the front as well? Or yeah, it's probably not muting it so well, but the trumpet one will mute better than that. But it's a different sound as well. There will probably be a circumstance where someone might want to use something like that. Trombone players are probably going to love this because they don't have to carry it around, or it's not as challenging to carry around. You can just stuff it in the trombone case somewhere. It's not really going to take up any room. You can't damage it either. Cool.
Some getting asked for hats as well.
Hat mutes. Oh, excellent.
That's similar to buckets.
Hat mutes. That's actually one thing I haven't really used that much, and they're starting to get rarer and rarer to actually see used. The Lincoln Center Big Band uses them because they're very, very much chasing an authentic sound. I've seen, the American renditions of the current Count Basie Big Band use them. BBC Big Band use them when they're doing the old school traditional big band stuff. But they're pretty rare now. They do make a difference. I haven't used one before. And I don't think I've ever seen one be used in Melbourne. It could have done. I could be wrong. There's a lot of music happening in Melbourne. A lot of it is very good. But yeah, I don't think I've seen one. But yeah, if anything that interrupts the sound going out of a bell, even if you're holding it out there, it is going to change the timbre, especially if you've got a section with 4 trumpets. Yeah. So yeah, like it will change the sound. I think Humes and Berg make a hat mute. I don't know what other companies do, but they will be out there. If you're desperate to find one, I'm sure Cal could probably source one.
So if your music had a hat mute written in, what would you choose to? What would be your go-to instead?
I'll probably play into the stand. Yeah. Because that'll change the timbre as well. So yeah, like I said, like if you're like most trumpet players, they're sort of playing live, you sort of have where you're supposed to have a 45 degree kind of angle. As soon as you move it downwards, even that, like that's going to change the sound in the room because the sound's reflecting in a different way. Yeah. You often see lead trumpet players and big bands pointing the bell up a bit. Some of them don't have to because they're really, really loud. But you will often see that because they want to try and get a bit of projection over the band. That's going to change the sound. All of this stuff will change the sound. Pointing it downwards will change the sound. Pointing it into a stand is going to, it's going to change the sound out the front of the band quite dramatically. Cool. I think we've got one left. This is another trump call mute, and I've played the Humes and Berg version of this, and I've actually got one at home. I think it had brake fluid leak on it from the boot of my car, so I haven't put it in near a trumpet for a while because I worried about the cork soaking it up and stripping the lacquer off the inside of the bell of my trumpet. But these are awesome. This is very much a 20s, 30s big band sound. You don't really see them used all that much today. They've got a lot in common with straight mute and Harmon. Obviously, the straight is very similar shaped. But down the bottom, it's completely sealed like a Harmon or a practice mute. You can see through it. So it's almost like it's got a stem in it. Yeah. But you can't take the stem out. So this is what it sounds like. Very different sound again. It doesn't sound like a Harmon with a stem in it. You do see it used in theatre music quite a bit, or old school 20s, 30s big band stuff. There will be Solotone written in it. It doesn't get used much in modern contemporary music, but I just love the sound of them. They feel great to play too. This is really, really nice. I would say this is a bit nicer than the Humes and Berg one. Probably more expensive, but you might think differently. You might hate this. You might like the Humes and Berg one. I don't have one here today, unfortunately, to demonstrate, but that's a Solotone mute, or this is called a vintage tone, but it's a Solotone mute. But for trump call, it's a vintage tone, but it's a Solotone mute. Cool. Any other questions? Apart from, can he stop playing now, please?
I mean, we've obviously been focusing on the trumpet ones, but basically it's the same for trombone.
Yep, trombone.
Range and...
Trombone uses all of these mutes as well. Trombone Harmon is much less common, but it does crop up from time to time. They mostly use straights, cups, and occasionally buckets. And solo tones, again, if you're playing early music. Yeah, French horn's a bit different. In fact, I think there's a French horn here. That's stopping mute. That really sort of aggressive, zingy sound you hear French horns do, that's called stopping. You can either do it with your hand by covering the bell, or you can use one of these. I know Joe Rail does a stopping mute, and apparently they're terrible. Buy this. This is a Tom Crown one. That's the one to get. Buy that one. And it's made out of brass, is it? Yeah. Cool. Piccolo trumpet. That's a really, really small piccolo trumpet cup mute. Piccolo trumpet shush mute is also tiny. So all these sorts of things are available for all sorts of different brass instruments. French horns are not going to use cup mutes or straight mutes. They might use a straight mute, but mostly a stopping mute because they're tuning. Yeah, like they have to play in a different key when they put the mute in. Poor buggers. Yeah, so I think getting back to what I was saying at the beginning of the video with my friend Josh, he had a bag full of mutes. He had basically a purpose for all of them. It was crazy. I think he had like 4 different straights, 4 different cups, 2 or 3 different Harmons. So I beat him on the Harmon for 3 Harmons. He had like 3 different buckets or 4 different bucket mutes, which is bizarre for a classical trumpet player, but good on him. So yeah, all of that, they all have their purpose, you know, and especially the straights and the Harmons. I feel like there's a lot of difference in the application between the straights and the Harmons because they can just sound so radically different. Even though they still sound like what they are, they can really have a different sound. But yeah, and practice mutes, that's all personal preference. If you like the feeling of a shush mute like I do, you should buy that one. If you don't buy it. Yeah. Cool.
Well, that might be as good a place as any to finish up. So thanks, folks, for joining us this evening to learn a little bit about mutes. You're welcome to shoot us any emails, sales@musicplace.com.au, or pop in the comments. We'll keep a track of that, and we'll try and get any questions answered for you. But otherwise, hopefully that was a bit of a nice intro to you. And Alex, thanks heaps for joining us.
My pleasure. I love talking about gear. So thanks for having me. Yeah.
All right. See you later.
See ya.